pa pa eya eya pa 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 eya pa pa eya eya.
Everybody, welcome back to YurView's Locally Louisiana. I'm Kaniqua, and our crew has a great show in store for you today. It's Black History Month, so we're going to shine light on our people of color, past and present, who've helped shape our world. So often we feature the famous names, and rightfully so. Civil rights leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., political groundbreakers like President Barack Obama, and acclaimed artists like poet Maya Angelou. We celebrate them all, but we'd like to focus on Louisiana Black history today. First up, Reverend T.J. Jemison. Born in Selma, Alabama, it's his time at Baton Rouge Mount Zion First Baptist Church that we'd like to spotlight today. In 1953, after years of enduring a Jim Crow system that mandated that black passengers stand behind empty seats reserved for whites on busy bus routes, Jemison and other black leaders in Baton Rouge convinced the city council to modify the seating ordinance to first come, first serve. But the bus drivers didn't want to enforce the new system. The state attorney general ruled that the new ordinance violated state segregation laws, and in June 1953, black people in Baton Rouge boycotted the buses for 8 days. The boycott ended with a compromise, but Jemison then took the city to court and won full integration of the city's buses. And if you're wondering, yes, the Baton Rouge boycott was a model for Dr. Martin Luther King's Montgomery bus boycott a couple of years later. Black history and black culture are woven into the fabric of the American South. It's easy to lose sight how we got here in the first place, but there's a museum in Lafayette that's setting out to make sure we're educated on this subject. It's called Maison Freetown. Here to tell us about it on Locally Louisiana is Erica Fox. Erica, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is such a thrill for me to be here. So thank you.
Of course. Now tell us a little bit more about Maison Freetown.
So our full name is Maison Creole de Freetown, but it's lovingly known as Maison Freetown. And we are an African American History Museum and Cultural Center. There's other things that we are, but to keep it short, that's basically what we are, a cultural space that is telling the stories of African Americans in a descended community of Lafayette, a neighborhood called Freetown, which was once the backside of a sugarcane plantation owned by Governor Alexander Mouton. And we're telling the stories of incredible people that helped build not just Lafayette, not just Louisiana, but have had an impact all over the world.
Wow, that is incredible. So tell me a little bit how you got involved in the museum.
So I'm born and raised from Lafayette. Interesting story. I'll kind of try to keep it short. I grew up spending time at grandparents, as many of our African American brothers and sisters usually would go to grandparents, back in the 80s and 90s. And I would sit at the foot of my grandfather, who loved to tell stories. And it was always incredible to hear those stories because my grandfather lived at a time when he couldn't read, he was illiterate or write. And so even if he wanted to dial the telephone, we had to call for him. But yet he worked for the local railroad, Southern Pacific, and he had traveled the world as a driver. And it always amazed me because he had gone all over from like coast to coast. How did he know how to get off or read a street sign or where to turn off? But he would come back with all these stories of his travels, and then even of the people of Lafayette. And these people had like characters. They seemed like characters, at least to me. And
Right.
it was amazing to hear those stories. I moved away for college. I went to Los Angeles and went to school at Occidental College. And one of my first work study jobs was working at a multicultural center. And again, I was surrounded by stories. And now it was of various cultures. And for some reason, all those characters that my grandfather would talk about kind of came flooding back. And I remember that, hey, we have such a rich culture in Louisiana too. So I always wondered, where could we experience that? Because every time I would go back home, I wasn't kind of seeing it in a physical space.
Wow.
And I would kind of talk to other organizations and some of our local representatives, our city government, just kind of prodding them and poking them to say, hey,
Right.
where's this place that has all of our stories, like a repository? And I kind of pitched an idea, but it took about 14 years for it to actually come into fruition. People were excited or thought it was a great idea, but no one was like chomping at the bits to create it. And so eventually got to a point where I said, you could either keep pointing fingers or be the solution. And that's kind of how Maison Freetown came to be. I call myself a reluctant curator because I didn't expect that it would be me initiating this cultural center. I thought there were other organizations and entities that probably could do it better, but now having been in the weeds of things, I don't think anybody else could have done it because it takes so much to put together a space. So it's been a labor of love for the last 14 years, and that's how, long story short, I got into it, creating a place where these stories could live.
That's incredible that you would take on something so big, but I mean, but look where you are today. Just a little bit. Now, you were telling us a little bit about what the full scale of the name is of Maison Freetown, but is there any significance to that name that you could speak about a little bit?
Yeah, so the significance of mentioning the Creole is we wanted to kind of be laser focused on the dynamics of the people, the demographic of the African Americans of this area. Creole, one, means that you're native of this area of Louisiana. It also speaks to the Afro or Pan-African influence who spoke French. So language and preserving the linguistic ties of the people in this area, like was important to us. I grew up with grandparents where French was their first language, and there was so much diversity here that tying it to Creole really kind of captured the traditions, the culture, the cuisine, the food, the people, the stories. And so that's why we named it Creole. And it's, as I mentioned, it's located in a pocket of Lafayette that many of those Creoles, free people of color, newly emancipated, enslaved, all occupy together, creating that, gumbo of cultures and people and mindsets. So that's why we named
Yeah,
it the Creole. And it's in a little Creole style cottage. So yeah,
I
it
love
just
that.
fits the bill.
Yes, for seriously, I love the fact that you're incorporating the full spectrum of blackness, as you say, because we're all different colors and our shades are through the roof from really really bright to really really dark. So that's really cool. And then the fact that you're incorporating the language of French and how we could speak multiple languages at that time. I love that aspect. And then putting all of that into your name is incredible as well, to be able to fit all of those dynamics. Now, there's something I heard about, and I want you to let me know a little bit what it is. What exactly is the True Friends Society?
Thank you for mentioning that. People don't know the story of True Friends, and I believe you all are located in the New Orleans area. True Friends operated there as well. True Friends Society of Lafayette, but there were different branches, was a benevolence group, a charity society of African Americans helping African Americans. They were being true friends to each other in the neighborhood. Our location, our organization was established in 1883 at a time when we didn't have those social services. So if you needed burial assistance, they put on social gatherings, they would do fish fries, whatever was needed to help sustain the African American community. True Friends did that. And so I thank you for bringing that up, because I think in our history, as you know, our government started to kind of take on some of those responsibilities and roles, we started to kind of lose that connection of people helping each other and being self-sufficient. And this organization is the group that maintains our museum, that helps us to continue telling their stories, their legacy. And it's important to keep telling those stories, especially in today's climate.
It's extremely important. Well, I'm glad I brought it up because I read it and I was like, I've got to know what this was. Now, is the museum focused mostly on physical exhibits, or is it more about maybe spoken word or storytelling, or a blend of all of those things?
It's a blend. It's a blend. It has to be, because we are community driven, but also fiscally sponsored by the community.
Okay.
It's literally the house that the community built. And so we have a BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, Person of Color incubator inside of this space. It's our gift shop, but some of our artisans, over 30 artisans of color, are represented inside of the museum that give workshops, DIY classes. We do have physical artifacts that we've actually dug up on the grounds and in the surrounding area. So you can actually see artifacts as late as the early 1700s in some of our cases. Yes, it's crazy to see how people would literally throw their junk in the backyard and it becomes something so precious and a treasure to us, later on. Then we have over 24,000 hours of recorded audio of local Louisianians sharing their stories, conversations. It was a remembrance project that we started and then later partnered with KRVS Radio and StoryCorps. And we were able to collect over 400 stories that are now documented in the Library of Congress. And that in itself is beautiful, because trying to go back in the past sometimes can be difficult. So our mission is also to start documenting today for future generations.
Yes.
We're also a bed and breakfast, so you can stay with us and really immerse yourself into the culture. And then we give walking tours. So we take you out and show you all the other historic places within Lafayette on our newly developed Lafayette African American Heritage Trail. So we offer a lot.
That is so cool. Oh my God, it's so much. I love that. It sounds like you could create a full day there, a couple of days, really.
Yes, yes. We've had to be very resourceful, but it's beautiful, and it really shows the resilience
Yeah.
of the people of this area.
Yeah, that's true. So, how can we find out more about Maison Freetown? Are there any things that you guys need help with that maybe some of our audiences would like to help you with? Let us know. Let everybody know.
Well, we have a website. You can go to maisonfreetown.org. We're on all social media platforms. And I would definitely recommend going to the website and signing up for our newsletter, because we send out a blast of all the things that we offer every month. We have various events. We've got a Creole music jam, French tables if you want to learn Creole French. We have Creole Inc., which is an organization that has been in existence for almost 40 years, that have work to continue to preserve the French language amongst African Americans. So for those people who, there's like a lost generation whose grandparents would send them outside while they were speaking, talking grown, like myself, we want to learn and connect back to that. So we offer French tables where you can learn. We've got exhibits right now. I know you've heard of the 6888 Central Postal Battalion. Lafayette has the oldest remaining soldier. Her name is Major Fannie McClendon. We've got an exhibit on her right now. She's 104 years old, served our country. That's why I say, when you start unearthing these stories, you find out that we've had an incredible impact on the world.
Yes.
And I love I love, love, love exposing those hidden stories. So come pass a good time with us. We're located at 800 East Vermilion Street in Lafayette.
Locally Louisiana celebrates Black History Month. This woman deserves our recognition and attention. Kathy Morris Wilkerson, the first female of the New Orleans Fire Department, joined the NOFD in 1992. Firefighter Wilkerson courageously paved the way for all female firefighters, operators, and captains that have served and currently serve in the city of New Orleans. The fight for civil rights must never be overlooked in our history books. Those who fight for change and are still with us today should be celebrated. Allow me to tell you about the strength and bravery of 4 young Black girls who integrated New Orleans public schools in November 1960. Now, you may have heard of Ruby Bridges. Just 6 years old, she entered William Frantz Elementary School alongside an escort of federal marshals. White parents responded by pulling their children out of school, and for an entire year, Ruby was the only child in her class. Despite death threats, Ruby showed up day after day. In 2011, Ruby Bridges met with President Obama at the White House. He told her, "I think it's fair to say that if it hadn't been for you guys, I might not be here." Ruby wasn't alone in the desegregation fight. On that very day in 1960, 3 other young Black girls integrated McDonough 19 Elementary. Their names, Leona Tate, Tessie Prevost, and Gail Etienne.
By the end of the day of November 14th, we were the only 3 students in this entire building. And that lasted for a year and a half. But we were confined to just this classroom, our play area, and the restroom. We never went to the cafeteria and couldn't wander on the outside because that outside was like an auditorium area. You know, for security reasons, I'm sure we were safe. We were safe.
You can learn more about the McDonough 3 by taking a trip to the TEP Center in the lower 9th Ward. Believe it or not, that building is the old McDonough 19 Elementary School. Leona Tate started her own foundation in 2009 and bought the building. Today, the foundation serves to empower and enrich the community.
So I knew I had to do something to preserve it. I kept being told no about bringing a school back since it was only bringing 1 school back to this area. But I thought of a museum, but we can't say museum because we don't archive here. So we have to be educated on what terminology we was going to use here. So it's now the Interpretive Center to educate people on the history of the civil rights movement. I don't want to come from a sentimental part, but it is very sentimental to me. But it stands here to tell the history of what happened in the 1960s, the desegregation of public schools. And to me, it's a place where people can come and we can talk about what happened during that time. Even if you had some of those ill feelings, we need to come and have that discussion here. And that's really what I want for the building, for people to come together and let's see how we can solve the racism issues here. Students are visiting, and they come here not even understanding where they're coming. And when they leave, it's a whole different ballgame for them, and that's my interest. I want to see that they understand what people went through just so that they can get a better education. And it seemed to work once they come to the building, and they tour the building just as the 3 of us entered it and come here and visit this classroom and see that it's not so long ago. They think things that happened like this was way back in slavery time. And then when they see me, I'm real, I'm still here, they kind of understand that it's real, it's real for them.
The first thing is you're going to walk in the footsteps of the 3 6-year-old girls who were the first to desegregate this school. So you walk up the 18 steps in the front of the building, you enter through that front door, which we title our principal's office exhibit, And in that space is where the girls waited for about 4.5 hours, not knowing what the fate of that day, November 14th, would be. And so after that, you move through and you come downstairs and you watch a short video that really chronicles the history going from the first day of school desegregation here in New Orleans through their high school and beyond. So what is one thing that's really important to understand is that these 3 girls didn't just integrate McDonough 19 or desegregate McDonough 19. They desegregated Thomas J. Sims, which was another all-white elementary school. Then Leona Tate went on to desegregate Cone Junior High with other black students. And then finally, Leona Tate, Gail Etienne, and other black children were among the first to go to Francis T. Nichols High School in 10th grade. And that was the point where integration was open for all the grades. So we talk about one day of integration, but it really was a 10-year period here in New Orleans.
Well, it's a different experience every time somebody comes. So I don't know, it's a different moment. Everybody experiences it a different way. You know, some people are just so overwhelmed with it and really appreciate that we're doing this. And I'm very happy of that.
To learn more about the work we're doing with the Leona Tate Foundation here at the TEP Center, you can, of course, visit our website, tepcenter.org, tepcenter.org, or please visit us on our social media platforms, Facebook. We have an @Leona Tate Foundation and an @TEP Center, as well as Instagram. And we also have a YouTube channel, which when we have programs, we put up videos with the past programs up there.
Thank you to everyone who chose to spend your time with us here today. Black history is our history. And it's our honor to tell you these stories of these Louisiana legends. If you missed any of our shows, don't worry. We've got these episodes and plenty more on watch.yourview.com. Check us out, and we'll see you next time here on Locally Louisiana. Bye, y'all.